Hello. Just about.
Let everybody go 5 minutes. So just record us for 5 minutes. You're on.
Yep.
But we can hear you. So send you that.
Excellent.
You're on the speaker. You're nearly there.
Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah. 2 seconds, all right? My dance screen.
Okay, folks, we're on the home stretch. Do you hear me, Kev? Hello.
I can.
Perfect. Okay, guys. Second last piece because Joe's going to say a few words at the end. So Kevin's going to talk about email and about new regulations that are happening with data. Correct?
Some of them, yeah.
Okay, perfect. So just give me a history on Kevin. Kevin's an Uber lord, right? So when he starts getting very technical, he's an Uber lord, right? Yeah, that'd be fair, Kev, wouldn't it?
An Uber lord.
Yeah.
I didn't quite hear that, Tony.
That's probably just as well, Kev. Keep smiling. Kevin owns a company that does autoresponders about email. He knows more about getting email into anybody's box than I know, right? I know it's wrong.
I don't know why you were looking at me.
He was laughing. So, getting email, here's an interesting one. If you get an email from somebody, oh, you're gone, Kevin, come back.
Oh, I'm still here.
Oh, your camera's gone.
It shouldn't have done.
Yeah. So refresh your camera. So Kevin knows more about getting email in there. If somebody gives you an email address, does that mean, so if someone comes to your website and gives you an email address, does that mean you're going to get an email with it? No. And it also means that when it comes to the new regulations that are coming on, how you hold the data, the permissions that you ask people for are all interesting. So Kevin, I'm going to shut up. Starting to cry on me. And your camera, we can see your presentation, but we cannot see your gorgeous glowing head.
Well, that's probably a good idea.
Yeah, very good. Rock and roll.
Okay, well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kevin Polley, and what I'm going to be talking to you about is GDPR, email marketing, and the end of the world as we know it. So, before I go into GDPR, it might be just helpful for some of you if you find out a little bit about me. So who am I? Well, in good tradition in something like this, my name is Kevin and I am a geek. The picture you see there is, what I look like now if you can't see the video, and as you can see, it's a face more suited to radio, which is probably a good idea. I've been online working with the web and helping businesses since October in 1999. During that time, I've been involved in pretty much every aspect of working with the web, from setting up servers, data centers, e-commerce, and what you can see on screen there is back in 2004 when I was working with Zencart, just sort of making things more usable for Europeans. Everything was organized with Americans in mind. Then I got involved in SEO, and being the geek, I've always had my eye on the future, and I kind of looked into the crystal ball and saw that the semantic web was coming, and that is pretty much where we are now. You've probably all heard of artificial intelligence, and I was looking at how computers talk to one another to help businesses. I've worked with different members of the W3C, and for those of you that aren't aware of what that is, that's the governing body of how the web works, the World Wide Web Consortium. In 2015, I bought the autoresponder company ARP reach from its original owners. Now, I've been using ARP reach to send emails since around about 2003, and it just seemed like a good idea at the time when this opportunity come up to take the hosting business that I've got and my passion for email marketing to link the two together. So before I get into the GDPR, I just want to put a little bit of a disclaimer out there for you so that you know where I'm coming from. I'm not an authority on GDPR, okay? But that doesn't mean that I don't know what I'm talking about. I've been researching the GDPR for over 12 months now since it came into the spotlight for business owners. It's important to know at this moment in time that the lawmakers and the decision makers in the EU are still tweaking things. So while some of it is cast in stone and it is going to happen, there are bits that they're still talking about. After this talk that I'm doing, if you feel that you need to get professional advice, please do. In the time that I've got, I can't go over everything. And as you can see there, you will have unique needs, and anyone who's in business should get someone like me or a little bit more knowledgeable to help you look at your own needs for GDPR. So what is GDPR? Well, it boils down to this. It's an acronym for the General Data Protection Regulation. And that's an EU regulation that comes into force from 25th of May this year. Now, by now, you should have started looking, if you're in business, at how the GDPR is going to affect you. Hopefully at the end of this little presentation, if you haven't done, you'll understand why it's important and you will make that effort to get in there and have a look. The whole point behind the GDPR is it gives back to control to EU citizens and residents of their personal data and how it's used. So this is all about privacy and misuse of cookies, misuse of data. We've had lots of data breaches, security breaches, people haven't been informed. And this law is to try and do something about that and hold the big companies and small companies accountable for looking after the data and people's personal information. This is probably the scariest part for most people that have never heard of GDPR. The fine for non-compliance is 20 million euros or 4% of your annual worldwide turnover, whichever the greater. And if you get any part of it wrong, those are the headline fines that are getting people to really sit up, get out of their chair and start doing something about this. One of the common misconceptions is that it doesn't apply to me. If you've got a business and you're based in the US or you've got different businesses in different countries, if you store, collect and use data from any EU citizen or resident, then the EU regulation applies to you. So my kind of important part to get over right now is please, please, please don't bury your head in the sand and hope it will go away. If you run a business or you collect data of any kind, then it does apply to you, even in a small sort of store. If you keep customer names and things like that, do look at it. Do put in place plans, and we'll cover some of the points of that in the next 5 or 10 minutes. So the really important things to know are just because you comply with the current data protection regulations, that doesn't mean that you also comply with the GDPR by default. In fact, the simple fact is you don't. You've got new requirements that have been placed on you by the EU, and you need to look at things. You must identify or make a decision, if you don't have someone at the moment, who is going to be responsible for controlling and managing all of your customer data. It's a requirement that you have somebody, and any businesses with over 250 employees actually have different regulations. Another important point to sort of get over is that you have to document your actions and demonstrate your accountability, no matter what size of business you're in. Now, that can be a single sheet of paper, or it can be a 200-page document. That will change depending on the size of your business. But as you go through this, just document what you decide as you go along, and you do have to make some decisions. Something else that most businesses, and especially the businesses that I deal with email marketing, you need to take into consideration, and that's if you share data with any third party, they also have to comply with the GDPR, and that doesn't matter what country they're in. So if you're a small business and you're using MailChimp or Aweber or different autoresponders, you need to actually ask them, do you comply with the GDPR? If they say yes, that's great, everything is fine, unless at some point in the future they have a data breach, then you are liable just as much as they are. So again, you need to document that you asked them, they said yes, keep that record. That's just the way the EU commissioners work. You're required to maintain records of all of your data processing activities. So on a day-to-day basis, if you're selling things and you're getting customer names and addresses, if you're shipping out goods to different places, you'll already have those records available to you. You've already got the legislation to keep them, but just bear in mind that the GDPR now says that you've got to make them available in a different format. And this is also quite an important part, which is why I put it here, and we're going to go into that in the next 2 or 3 minutes. And that is, you need to know and choose your lawful basis for processing data. So the question there is, what is a lawful basis? And I'll cover that in a minute because it is quite important. You need to make sure that you've got the right procedures in place as well to detect, report, and investigate if there is a personal data breach. A little bit earlier on, I said that this is about all of the data breaches. If you've got a WordPress site, for example, and you get hacked, then essentially you are in breach of the GDPR. You just need to have a documentation or documented process that how you will identify these, what the impact is, and what you'll do to fix it. It's good practice anyway, but now it's a legal requirement that you document the data breach process. So hopefully by now you know you need to do something if you haven't done it already. So what I'm going to do, because it relates to pretty much all forms of business in specific email marketing, I'm just going to go over the lawful basis for processing data. It is now okay for you to say, I'm going to sell something online or in a shop, excuse me, and I'm going to capture name and address for delivery. The GDPR changes that slightly because you're going to be collecting data and using it. You need to know the lawful basis for collecting the data and using it. And there are 6 available lawful bases for processing the data. Now, no single basis is better or more adequate for your needs. And the 6 that you have available are consent, contract, legal obligation, vital interests, legitimate interests, special category data, and criminal offence data. And I'll be going into these in brief in just a moment. You're also probably all aware, if you've got a website, that you need to have privacy notices. And you are going to have to change your privacy notice to comply with the GDPR. And part of that will include you telling your customers and contacts and people that sign up for forms or whatever you're selling, how you're going to process the data, why, and how long you're going to keep it. And you've also got other obligations within your privacy notice to tell customers and people that use your website what they can do to get their data removed and what rights they have as well. So the thing that I found, which was kind of strange, but when I looked into it, kind of made sense, but doesn't, is you need to choose the best basis or bases first time for how you're going to process data. The reason for that is you can't swap to a different lawful basis at a later date without good reason. And if you look at what I've said about the documentation, you then need to document that. And it's just going to add complications into your businesses if you do have to change. So the first steps of looking at your data, where it is, how you're collecting it, and what your method and reason, take a bit of time with that and do some background research. So a quick deeper look at the legal bases that are available. From an email marketing perspective, most of us are already aware that you need to seek consent from a person in order to send them emails. That now has an expanded viewpoint, and it looks on the face of it that consent might be the best way forward if you're going to collect email addresses. But what you also need to take into consideration, and why I say that you can use one or more, is the other legal basis that is worth considering, certainly in my business, is contract. And that's the processing of contractual data. When people place an order with you, what you're going to do with their data. Are you going to use that to send them their order via a courier? And if you are going to send them their package by a courier, that means that you have to share their personal information with the courier, and therefore going back, you need to check with your couriers and the people that are delivering any goods that you're selling that they're going to look after the personal data of your customer as well. There's also the legal obligation, and this is for the processing of any data that is necessary for you to comply with the law, but that doesn't include the contractual obligations which we've just covered. So with your invoices and things like that, you'd have names and addresses that are containing personally identifiable information. You'll have a need to keep those for a set period of time. So there's a legal obligation for you to store that data. You need to document how you're going to store it, is it safe, how long for, and notify your customers. So the other parts which might not apply to everyone, but they will apply to some people, are vital interests. Certainly I've got no need in my business to say that, you know, it's a vital interest, I'm going to protect someone's life by storing your email address. There's also a big onus on public bodies, and they have new regulations to store and use public information, and why, and legitimate interests as well. Now, if you start looking at legitimate interests, there's lots and lots of information online about why it can be useful for you to use legitimate interests to collect and store data, and also some of the cons of using that. Certainly if you're in a public arena, you can't use legitimate interests to store information about, you know, sort of the people that you might have as a local authority. So, as I said, it's the end of the world. And it's not actually in email marketing terms and general marketing terms and for business. I actually believe that the GDPR, if you think about it logically, it's a golden opportunity for all marketers and business owners to actually use the GDPR, comply with it, and do much better business with your customers. And what I'm going to do now is just explain some of my thoughts behind that to put a positive spin on something that's probably scared quite a few of you. So the first principle of the GDPR is that it requires you to process all personal data lawfully, fairly, and in a transparent manner. That's great. So how can we use that? Well, the GDPR doesn't actually stop you asking for more information. And in email marketing terms, you've probably all been to websites where a little pop-up comes up and they say, give us your email address and we'll give you 5 or 10% discount on your first order or things like that. If we take this to its extreme and we are going to be transparent, we can begin as marketers asking for lots more information. And as I go through the next couple of screens, you'll see why that's going to be really good for you. What I'm suggesting is that you're very transparent. You know, this is a law we're all going to have to go through. People aren't sure of it. So say I'm going to ask you for your name, your email address. I'm going to ask you your inside leg measurement, whatever it is that you need to know for your business. Ask in clever and creative ways and be transparent about why you're asking for it. Be very specific about what you want to know. And this is the important part, why it will help your contacts and your, sort of current clients when they freely give you more information that you will look after on their behalf under the GDPR. And be very transparent about what emails and letters you're going to send to your contacts and clients about the types of offers that you're going to ask them. Now, it might sound kind of counterintuitive, but if you're upfront that, well, we'll send you an offer a week or an offer every 2 weeks, and the more information you give us, the better we can tailor the offers to you. You're already setting the precedent in your client's mind that you're out to help them. And because you've got GDPR and most people are going to know about this, they know that they've got control of their data and they can ask you not to send them information if you start sending the wrong kind of information. So going back to that top screen, this is actually a golden opportunity for all marketers and business owners to collect more data, use it wisely. And if you think about it, GDPR working within the framework, this is an absolutely golden time for you to start building trust with your contacts and use it as a foundational part not only of the GDPR, but for building that relationship from the first point of contact with new people that come into your shops and come onto your websites, and when you're asking for information at the first time. So manage your subscribers' expectations. What you want to do is try to have them drooling for and looking for and anticipating every letter or email that you send them. If you've already told them up front that you're going to be sending them an offer or useful information, then do it and make it exciting. Make them want to look for it on a regular basis. In email marketing terms, if you say that you're going to send 1 email a week, just send 1 email a week. If you tell them you're going to send an email every day, then send them an email every day. So also try to remember that it's good business sense for you to build a relationship that actually benefits your readers and your clients, not just you. If you do it more for them, you're not only complying with the GDPR, you're giving them a greater sense of ownership of what you do, and they're more likely to come back with you, more likely to open your emails. And that's going to be great for your business, because the more emails that get opened and read, the more sales that you're going to make. And remember, it's okay to ask questions and encourage replies when you're sending out marketing material. And it doesn't just have to be email, because every answer that you get is covered by the GDPR, and it's data. So you know you're looking after it, but you also know that if you ask your clients, do you like red or blue, and you store that information, the people that say red, you can send messages targeted to, red clothes, and if they say blue, it can be blue clothes. So do ask questions. Don't be scared to ask questions, and use that for profiling, to segment your customers into much smaller niches where you can send highly targeted messages with highly targeted offers that are more likely to be opened and more likely to get you more sales. Use the GDPR as a basis. The research that you're going to do, use that as, a way of thinking, what information can we ask for that's going to help our customers get better results from us? And directly that will lead to more sales for you and your business. And remember that your privacy policy, you'll need to change that. So use the privacy policy not just to let people know why and what you're doing with their data, but also to encourage the people that do look at privacy policies that it's healthy and safe for them to give you more information, because you can give them a better result or a finished result as a fact that they give you more information. So I just said about segmenting your contacts, and in email marketing terms, one of the biggest problems is, as Tony said right at the beginning of this, getting your emails through the filters and into your inbox. And segmenting is a great way of getting more and more emails to your customers. I've said about sort of the color red and the color blue. There's no one size fits all in today's society when you're getting out a marketing message. You can try it. It's called blast marketing. And if you've got 2,000 people on your contact list or your customer list, and you all send them all the same offer, you run that risk of alienating some of your customers by sending inappropriate messages to them. So by asking the questions that you need to know for GDPR and help your business at the same time, you can put all of your contacts and your clients into smaller groups, send less emails, which will go through the filters because there'll be less complaints, and indirectly that will lead to more sales for you. So what I've got here is some helpful resources, and I think what's going to happen is that Tony will take this screen and make this available to you. I'm certainly not expecting you all to rip out your pens and take screenshots of this, but what I've got here is a few links to different places where you can get more information from the authority itself. Now, in the UK, that's the Information Commissioner's Office. They provide regular updates about the changes that are still going on and affect your business, and they've got some great guides to help you get going. So the first link here is a general guide to the GDPR. The second link that I've got for you again comes from the ICO, and that's the 12 simple steps that the ICO have put in place for any business that hasn't addressed GDPR. It puts it in a simple 12-step process of all the things that you need to do, and links to the other information that you're going to need to be compliant from later on this year. There's also a helpline that the ICO have set up in the last couple of months because of the amount of interest that there is about this. And this link here has got a number where their help team will be able to answer some of your questions. And the last link that I've got there is a link to one of the newsletters that I've put up that uses ARP Reach, which is my software. We've been very upfront and transparent on the sign up page about what you get, and we use double opt-in as a process to let you know that you are giving us consent to sign up your emails. And the reason I've put that there is with email marketing, my personal belief and everything that I've read from all of the considered sources that I've used is just taking an email address and starting to send emails to people is a surefire way of getting yourself in trouble with the GDPR. And moving forward, I think what you're going to find, and certainly the safest way forward, is for you all to start employing a double opt-in process. Tell people what you're going to give them, capture their name, their email address, and any other information you want, push them to a page that says look in your email, there's going to be a link for you to click to confirm we can send you information, and then use the landing page in your first email to reinforce the trust building that you're going to have, and tell them that there's going to be a long-term relationship between you and them. And with that, I've just about finished my process here, and I'd just like to thank all of you for turning up, watching me on the screen. Raise a glass to yourself, have a drink. Tony, back to you.
Kevin, you scared the Jesus out of all our good luck. Thanks, Kevin.
No problem.
Question? Kevin?
Yep.
So the question I have for you is, when you're using accountancy apps like Wave, and you're taking photos of the receipts or invoices that you want to save for your accounting package, how do you protect that from being hacked into, or like?
That would be more of it. So that would be a question for him, right, rather than Kevin. Because he's talking about capturing, when you're capturing customers' details. So he's that thing. When somebody gives you an invoice,
They might be on it. That's
yeah, but say you're capturing the question is, if you're putting it into non-cloud software, you're protected by the cloud software. It's one of the reasons we like cloud software, because they'll all be compliant, right? If you capture somebody's name and email address and send them an email, right, that's where the risk knows. Because if you don't tell them why you're sending, so for example, if I sell you glass, right, and then I send you marketing emails, and I haven't told you I'm sending you marketing emails, then the fine is 20 million or 10% of your annual turnover, or 5% of your annual turnover, which is ever bigger, right? Okay? No, whether it's a toothless monster, what it is, it's probably a toothless monster, to be honest, for the first 6 months, like all of these things are, but the monster will grow teeth over a period of time. So it's just as well to know about the start. I just answered your, you can go ahead.
So you spoke earlier on about being specific with people in terms of the reasons why you're capturing their information. Do you have anything that you can send us on that you might have used yourself?
We'll give you a page.
Yeah.
The link is
Yeah, what I've done there is on the last link, I've given you a link to a newsletter that I put up with GDPR in mind. I use that as part of the training process for some of my clients. And the landing page before you sign up, the story that you give people, what they're signing up for, that's managing their expectation, and that's part of the process. Then having them double opt in as you go through that process. Keep the emails that you're sending them, and just keep part of that whole process. It's not difficult. It looks difficult, but when you apply your mind to it, there's some really ingenious ways that allow you to comply with the legislation that's out there. And remember, at the moment, a lot of this is still not law. They're still working things out. As long as you're upfront about what people are going to sign up for, they can't argue with it. It's when you don't deliver on what you've said that you're going to run into those problems.
Yeah.
I'll just ask Kevin. Kevin, what if you have an existing email address and these laws come into play? So you may have somebody on your list for maybe a year?
So that's a really, really good question. And I think probably the best answer that I can give you is actually to relate a story of why Wetherspoons, one of the biggest pub chains in the UK, got rid of 650,000 of their contacts because they didn't opt in. The risk you have is if you don't have the confirmation at this moment that these people have given you permission to email them, if you then email them or send them a letter or phone them up, you're in breach of existing data protection regulations. So in some respects, you know, you need to find a clever way to do it that doesn't breach your existing regulations. And some companies, as I say, like Wetherspoons, they are just dumping the whole of their customer list and starting again.
Okay, because you're a purist, put your fingers in your ears. Email them now and get them to opt in again. That's what we're all doing. Anybody who's got an email list, we're either killing them or we're emailing them out and we're getting them to opt in.
So double opt-in. Yeah.
So get them to opt in again. If they've already opted in, because most yours will be lead generated, so
No.
okay, but so get them to opt in and then get them to confirm the email and then you're out the gap. Your rate will drop like hell when you double opt in. But that's going to be
Is this
part
for
of
the
it.
EU only, Kevin, or is it, you know, because it's
Worldwide.
States, just the EU?
No, it's worldwide.
Worldwide.
It's worldwide. No, let's be honest. Who's got 20 million? Right? So, but it will, like all of these costly laws, it will come down and we'll see what happens. So it's just as well to have your belt and braces at the start.
Yeah.
Kevin, thank you, darling.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Have fun all, and see you soon.
Sayonara.
Hiya.
No, he's gone. What a mess.